Spiritual gumbo. Seed of the Hebrew. We're going to pick up in verse 20, verse 19, excuse me. No, verse 20 of chapter 22 of the Genesis. And we're just going to carry right on down. And this is going to explain some of the things about the bloodline of the Israelite people. It'll explain why some of the races of people they're not, at least one of them exclusively, they're not to blood mix with later. And I'll explain it as we go forward. And it came to pass after these things, verse 20, that it was reported to Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah herself too has borne sons to Nachor thy brother. So it's been a while, right, since he's seen his brother, and everything's being told to him. Uz, the firstborn, and Baals, or Baal, his brother, or Bo, depending on who's saying it. But it's Baux. Some people won't say Baz. It all just depends. We'll say Baz. And Kemuel, listen, the father of the Syrians. Interesting. And Kazad, and Azav, and Phaldez, and Jaldath, and Bathuel. And Bathuel begot Rebekah. These are 8 sons, which Milcah bore to Nachor, the brother of Abraham. And his concubine, whose name was Ruma, she also bore Tabak, and Tam, or Tame, and Tokas, and Mocha. And the life of Sarah was 127 years. And Sarah died in the city of Arbach, which is in the valley. This is Chabran, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to lament for Sarah, and to mourn. And Abraham stood up from before his dad. And Abraham spoke to the sons of Ket, saying, I am a sojourner, and a stranger among you. What? I am a sojourner, and a stranger among you. Give me therefore possession of a burying place among you, and I will bury my dead away from me. And the sons of Ket answered to Abraham, saying, Not so, sir. Listen to this. But hear us. Thou art in the midst of us a king from God. Stop right there. Now we have to really stress on this Hebrew thing. Do you notice? Has anybody ever noticed that Syria and Mesopotamia, they encroached in different lands, but they didn't have to actually go into different lands to actually do what they did. Abraham is a true listen to me. This dude is doing a hostile takeover. Did you hear what these guys likened him to just then? A king from God. Let me read that to y'all again. Thou art in the midst of us as a king from God. If that doesn't tell you the status of one Abraham, that should tell you everything. And then that should tell you that he himself came from a royal bloodline. This is the beef with the Chaldeans, and it's the beef with the Syrians. And this is why what happens with Rebekah later, when she sends her son, Jacob, into the land of Syria and Mesopotamia, she messes up the whole relationship. And we'll explain that with the children later. But I'm just giving you, a preface to what's to come. Here we go. Verse 6. Not so, sir, but hear us. Thou art in the midst of us as a king. Thou art in the midst of us a king from God. Bury thy dead in our choice sepulchres. Or sepulchres. Sepulchres, I think is how they said though. Sepulchres, there we go. For not one of us will by any means withhold his sepulchre from thee, so that thou shouldest not bury thy dead there. And Abraham rose up and did obeisance to the people of the land, to the sons of Ket. And Abram spoke to them, saying, If ye have it in your mind that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hearken to me, and speak to me. Ephron, the son of Sar, or Ser, and let him give me double the cave which he has, which is in part of his field. Let him give it me for the money it is worth for a possession of a burying place among you. Now Ephron was sitting in the midst of the children of Ket. And Ephron the Kittite answered Abram, and spoke in the hearing of the sons of Ket, of all who entered the city, saying, Attend to me, my lord, and hear me. I give to thee the field and the cave which is in it, and I have given it to thee before all my countrymen. Bury thy dead. And Abram did obeisance before the people of the land. And he said in the ears of Ephron, before the people of the land, Since thou art on my side, hear me. Take the price of the field from me, and I will bury my dead there. But Ephron answered Abram, saying, Nay, my lord, I have heard indeed the land is worth 400 silver didrachms. But what can this be between me and thee? Nay, do thou bury thy dead. And Abram hearkened to Ephron. And Abram rendered to Ephron the money, which he mentioned in the ears of the sons of Ket, 400 drachms of silver, didrachms of silver, approved with merchants. Obviously, they have to test the purity, they have to test the quality, things like that. Do you see how, he just didn't give them a whole bunch of silver that could just not be silver? You see how, it even explains that basic minutia? Do you see how it's telling us that he's telling them, he told Abram, look, bro, Abram really didn't have to actually pay him for the field. But Abram's like, I hear you, bro, but I'm going to pay you. You know what I'm saying? And so he did that because that's what they had everybody in the congregation said, well, it's worth this much. So he paid them what they said it was worth, and he gave them what they knew to be righteous silver. Verse 17 of chapter 23. And the field of Ephron, which was in double cave, which is opposite Mamre, the field and the cave, which was in it, and every tree which is in the field, and whatever is in its borders round about, were made sure to Abram for a possession before the sons of Ket, and all that entered into the city. After this, Abram buried Sarah his wife in the double cave of the field, which is opposite Mamre. This is Chebron, in the land of Canaan, or Canaan. So the field and the cave which was in it were made sure to Abram for possession of a burying place by the sons of Ket. And Abram was old, advanced in days, and the Lord blessed Abram in all things. And Abram said to his servant, the elder of his house, who had rule over all his possessions. Listen to that. So a person who lives with Abram, an elder, and obviously somebody who's older, right? Who has control, listen, right? Has rule or control over all this. This dude can do whatever he wants. So understand that we don't ever get a perception in the day of life of Abram. We never get that perception. We never get this. But it's those little things like that tell us everything. That this man that he asked to do this was somebody who wasn't like some young scrub poop butt that is going to deviate and not do what he's supposed to do. Word? And once again, Abram is likened to a king. So you don't think his servants look at him like a king? Just going forward. And this is how he's able to produce from his loins great kings in many nations. Because he himself is already in the position. He already practices what it takes. You understand? Now, we're going to keep it pushing. And Abram said to his servant, the elder of his house, who had rule over all his possessions, put thy hand under my thigh, and I will adjure thee by the Lord, the God of heaven, the Lord, the God of heaven, and the God of the earth, that thou take not a wife for my son Isaac from the daughters of the Canaanites, with whom I dwell in the midst of them. But thou shalt go instead to my country, where I was born. But thou shalt go instead to my country, where I was born, and to my tribe, and thou shalt take from thence a wife for my son Isaac. And the servant said to him, Shall I carry back thy son to the land whence thou camest forth? If haply the woman should not be willing to return with me to this land. And this is verse 6 of chapter 24. And Abraham said to him, Take heed to thyself, that thou carry not my son back thither. The Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, who took me out of my father's house, and out of the land whence I sprang, who spoke to me. Understand, this is all about the Hebrew bloodline when I talk about this stuff. I had to get through all the whole funeral procession and where he would bury his dead, and if he was going to have to go far off and possibly take her where they were from to bury her. Understand, right? He didn't have to do all that. He had to figure all that out. That was a major logistical thing, because she's likened to what? A queen. Thank you very much. Not just about to let you bury anybody in a sepulcher. Anyway, the point is this. The point that I'm trying to make is that, do you hear how now he makes a distinction? Abraham is speaking, and he makes a distinction. He's saying, the Lord God, the Lord, the God of heaven, and the God of the earth, who took me out of my father's house. Now, some people would say that comma means that the God of the earth is a different God. No, he's saying that the Lord, the God of heaven, and he's the God of heaven and the God of earth. Right on. He's not just one. Right on. He doesn't just run the heavens and doesn't run the earth. He runs everything. You see. And it's just important for Abraham to really emphasize this to us. And he's saying that to his servant, right on, like, yo, it wasn't just the reason why I'm so blessed is because of who actually did this for me, right? And he's telling the servant, hey man, I don't want my son marrying a Canaanite. He needs to marry somebody from where I'm from my tribe, from my people. Now you can say, oh, Abraham is Syrian. No, he's not. The Syrians are now in the land because there are now a group of people who have made themselves out of something in the land of Chaldea. Come on. Listen to me now. Close to the land of Chaldea. And you know why he says that from the land I sprang up? Because when they were young, they had left the Chaldeans, right on. They had left the land of the Chaldeans and went into was it Quran? I want to say, right? And that's where his father dies, Terah. So we have to understand that Nakor at any time could have just doubled back. Really, it just says he took Lot and his son Abraham. It didn't say he took Nakor with him, so Nakor could have stayed. So this is why the whole thing is deep, and Nakor could have made himself larger, right on. He could have made himself an empire in the land of the Chaldeans. Come on, say it now. Hear me now. Now we're going to pick up in verse 7. The Lord, the God of heaven, and the God of the earth, who took me out of my father's house, and out of the land whence I sprang, who spoke to me, and swore to me, saying, I will give this land to thee, and to thy seed. He shall send his angel before thee, and thou shalt take a wife to my son from thence. He shall send his angel before thee, and thou shalt take a wife to my son from thence. And if the woman should not be willing to come with thee into the land, thou shalt be clear from my oath. Only carry not my son thither again. And the woman put his hand, and the servant put his hand under the thigh of his master, Abraham, and swore to him concerning this matter. There we go. No, let me go ahead and read this part. And the servant took 10 camels of his master's camels, and he took all the goods of his master with him. And he arose and went into Mesopotamia, into the city of Nachor. Interesting. Interesting. The blood run deep, don't it? Spiritual Gumbo. Out.